What's up, guys? In this video, I'm gonna break down the Andrew Tate situation. I have allowed myself, at this point, almost a week, to really see kind of how it all has, at least so far, unfolded before commenting, which, I think that if I would have done this a week, right after it happened, it would have been probably a little bit of a different conversation. So I wanted to see so far, and I understand it's a so far thing, sorry about that, in terms of what evidence has been released, but I did want to see so far what evidence would come out in the first week. And I know being in the public eye, evidence in the public eye, or absence of evidence in the public eye, does not mean there's an absence of evidence overall. There's some type of the authorities, I would imagine, in Romania, a place I know that has been many times by many people called corrupt, even by people that live there. So it doesn't mean that Romania, because they're claiming to have evidence, necessarily would. But I'm hoping that because the judge decided to turn down his release after 24 hours and extend it to up to 30 days, or even up to 180 days, I think it is overall, but they have to do 30 days at a time, from what I understand. I would hope that means they actually have evidence, right? Not that I hope that these crimes were committed, or not that I even hope that Andrew's guilty, but I just hope that they wouldn't just pretend to have evidence to keep him, under lock and key for that time. Because I heard Michael Francis, who's a former mob boss in the Italian mafia, said that he's heard that the Romanian jails and prisons are some of the worst in the world, just as far as being very nasty places. And that, to me, brings me to the first point that I don't think many people are talking about, that I want to discuss, and that is Andrew and his brother were arrested, right? And we all have heard that. However, there have been, I believe, 2 other women arrested, or at least one other woman. The other one might have gotten released. So there's still one other woman in jail. Now, I think the claims on her are that she was helping them to get these, to recruit the women that they would basically kidnap or whatever, allegedly. And so I think that's basically the claim. Whereas to me, and this is the point that Michael Francis also brought up, it's interesting to me that he said, what if, and because when you're in jail, anybody that's ever been to jail, and a lot of people have, just even for a night or whatever, if there were someone that would sit there and tell you in jail, hey, if you just do this, right, I'll let you out. And then keep in mind that Romanian jails are apparently some of the worst in the world. It's like, if you put a girl in there that is, even if she's innocent, right, and you put her in there, and you're saying here to 30 days, maybe even up to 6 months, 180 days, maybe the idea is, if Andrew was completely innocent, maybe the idea is, hey, we're gonna get this girl to cave in and snitch on her, and then it's maybe that, because I think that the Tate brothers, it's a safe bet that one of them is not going to cave in and blame everything on the other, right, in order to work out some type of a deal and get themselves out of trouble. It would be one of the more shocking things that ever happened to me, in terms of if Tristan, or if Andrew said, hey, it was all Tristan, it wasn't me. That would, to me, would be almost impossible. So if you incorporate this whoever this girl is into the equation, maybe then they feel like, hey, Andrew, Tristan, we're gonna get her to say XYZ about you, and we don't even care if it's not true. We're corrupt, right? So, or maybe she knows some things, if she's guilty and they're all guilty, maybe she actually has evidence to say, hey, I know they're guilty because I was helping them. I'll work out a deal. If you let me out of here, I'll tell you everything, right? That would be, in either case, guilty or innocent, that would be the best bet for them if they don't have a bunch of substantiated evidence already. So I thought that was interesting, an interesting point brought up by Michael Francis that I'm now kind of putting my own little thing on. So that's one thing. The idea that if people out there don't like Andrew Tate, he's not a person that you feel indifferent on, right? Mostly. In general, people either love him or they absolutely hate him. And so that's why you see literally every opinion is diehard supporter defending him, or diehard hater dragging him, wanting him to be put in prison, wanting these things to be true. what I'll say is that if you believe that it's impossible for the government, world governments, to work together and set this thing up completely, if you think that's impossible, you are delusional. It's certainly a possibility. However, if you think it's impossible, on the contrary, Andrew Tate, if you think it's impossible for him to be guilty of anything, you also are delusional, right? I mean, I understand there are people that know him, and literally every single person that knows him personally has come to his defense and talked about how much of a great character he has and what a great person he is, especially when the cameras are off. He's not as, polarizing, I would imagine, is what they kind of say. And so, I get that on both sides of it, people feel strongly, but you're delusional in either scenario if you think that it's impossible that he's guilty, or if you think that it's impossible that he's been set up. I think that both of those are equally delusional, maybe even more so on the side of the government. If the pandemic didn't teach you anything, we need to really stop underestimating them. A lot of people say, oh, the government's stupid, and I'm not even just talking about one country's government. I'm talking about the entire world government, any government. Oh, they're just stupid. You're giving them too much credit for these conspiracies. No, dude, look what they did with COVID. They literally, in my opinion, I can't even say that, but there may or may not have been an election that resulted in a certain way because of a certain thing. Let's just put it like that, right? So, in terms of what do I think of Andrew if he's guilty or innocent, I don't really I would bet that he's innocent of the bad stuff. I would be almost shocked if he were guilty of the R word, and if he were actually forcing women to stay at his house and monitoring that. That would, to me, would seem awfully unlikely. However, because of some things that he said himself about the webcams business that he was running, in terms of oh, I'm going to make them fall in love with me, and we're going to get rich together. He never said he was going to exploit the girls and screw them over, but he never said he was going to force them to work, but he did say that he would basically convince them to do the webcam service because he would get them to fall in love with him. Now, there's this thing, if you haven't heard of it, it's called the Loverboy. I don't know, the Loverboy thing, whatever. The Loverboy is a strategy or a crime that in Romania is illegal. That if you convince women through coercing them to do some things that they didn't otherwise want to do, then it's supposedly a crime in Romania, even though it's not a crime in most of the world. I saw someone, Jake Shields on Twitter, come back with the question of well, are we going to start arresting women, and even in Romania, are we going to start arresting women that are with guys because they're rich, only because they're rich, right? They're not actually like them. They just wanted to be with them because they're rich, and they're willing to do some things to, be able to extract wealth from those guys. I mean, it's a good point, but whatever the Romanian law is, the Romanian law is, and if it would be really a shame to me if Tate went into Romania thinking that it was a safer place to just be, to escape maybe the Me Too movement or things of that nature, and then he went in there not knowing that the Loverboy whatever thing is actually illegal there, thinking that he was safer there, and then because of that he ends up getting arrested there and charged and maybe even in prison for a certain amount of time with the whole Loverboy thing. That would be ultimate irony, and I know his haters would love it, his supporters would hate it. I personally like Tate. I don't have anything against him. I'm still going to try and be as objective as I possibly can be here. To me, that would suck, because it just feels like something that you shouldn't be in prison for, assuming, of course, that he wasn't forcing women to stay there against their will. And there were people that were, it's so funny that people are literally upset that he was paying these, I guess that his, at one point there was a tweet by Andrew, I think, that had said that his 8 women brought in $551,000 in a month through the webcam service, and that he was going to keep $500,000 and basically give them the rest. And people are saying, dude, they're so underpaid. Somehow people gathered from that they were only getting paid $2,000 per month each. That was clearly not the case, because 51 divided by 8 is a whole lot more than that. I think it's $13,000, if I remember correctly, per month. But then when they showed the actual, it was like an invoice looking type of thing, it showed that he kept even less. It was like $448 and gave them the $103, and that I believe comes out to $13,000 a month. So each girl made between $8,000 and $13,000 per month on average. So like that, to me, you can't make the claim that he's, not paying them well. Like, that's pretty good money. Do you make $13,000? You make $8,000 a month. That's basically $100,000 a year, I think. So in any case, and then people make the argument, well, that's not a fair split. They're doing all the work. Not really true, because if they were to do it on their own, in most of those cases, with at least most of those women, from what Tate said, and also just from common sense, right? Like, a lot of women would prefer the man to run the business and they to just get on there, tell me what to say, and let me say it. Like, I'll look nice and I'll say what you say for me to say, and give me, what I believe is fair compensation. And I think that that's pretty much just business in and of itself, right? If you hate that, you hate capitalism. Because by example, Elon Musk is one of the richest people in the world, right? I don't know if he's still the richest, but he's one of them. He's worth billions and billions of dollars. Do you think there's a person at Tesla making $100 million a year salary? I would highly doubt it, right? And do the math in terms of the extrapolation of how that compares to Tate and his webcam. So it's very business as usual in terms of like the CEO, the owner, operator, founder, whatever, making the majority of the money. Yeah, because they're doing everything, right? They're investing money, they're finding the girls, they're putting everything in place, and they're asking for individual employees to execute their job, as directed. And I think that's pretty normal, right? So I don't have a huge problem with that. I think that it's actually, if they don't have to basically think, and they're just on there, being told what to say and just saying stuff, I think that's a pretty good gig, making $8,000 to $13,000 a month, just to do that. So I think that's actually fair compensation, regardless of what some people might say that hate him. It, to me, is just polarizing in the sense that this whole time, right, you have people that hate him, that call themselves objective journalists, that literally say, oh, there's a bunch of evidence against him. And you're like, okay, what's the evidence? And they're like, well, I talked to someone that he sexually assaulted, and I can't say who, I can't say what he did, I can't say anything, right? Like, I can't tell you anything, but just know I've talked to someone. Like, literally, if I hated Andrew Tate, I could get on here right now and say, dude, I personally know a woman that was trafficked by him for years. Like, but I can't tell you anything because she's not, like, I understand that is a common thing where victims in certain cases don't want to, like, they don't want to come forth because they don't want whatever the potential consequences might be. But you can't, as a journalist, you can't call that evidence. Just shut your mouth if they won't come forward. And I know that's tough, but you're making yourself look like an idiot. You're making yourself look foolish. So far that I've seen, there's been zero evidence to show that he's undeniably done the Loverboy method even. There's definitely been zero evidence that he's done any of the other stuff, right? So that's kind of my take on everything so far. I will keep you posted. And as I said, I like Tate. I'm pretty much a fan of his content, at least. And I think a lot of his message is actually good. I don't think there's anything wrong with the majority of the stuff that he says. I might not agree with absolutely everything, but I don't think there's anything really wrong with what he's saying. And if this is an attack by the world governments, the new world order, the globalists, however you want to call it, the people in power, I think it's absolutely terrifying, to the regular people of the world. Because if you go out there and you make something of yourself and you have a voice in your own platform and you're saying something they don't like, you know what I mean? That, to me, if this could be a consequence of that, it's very, very scary. And I 100% think it's possible. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I will talk to you guys later. Peace out. Subscribe.